Well, there's a lot going on with the elections, the national election, of course, for the presidential office. The three main contenders. Well, really, there's two main contenders, and then there's that one guy who everyone sort of forgets about. You've got Donald Trump, you've got Ted Cruz, and you've got, John Kasich, that guy. Yeah, him. Forgot about him. Everybody forgets about John Kasich. And probably because he's pretty forgettable, actually. He doesn't really do a whole lot. He's kind of an awkward guy. There's not really a whole lot you can say about him. You know, what do you know about John Kasich? Well, he's John Kasich. You know, people don't know about John Kasich. He's the governor of that one state, I guess. There's that. People don't really know about John Kasich, and he's gotten a few delegates. He's got that going for him. But again, he's not going to be elected. For some reason, people not too long ago thought that John Kasich was going to be the surprise nominee who's going to come in and everyone's going to vote for John Kasich. I don't know where that came from, but I heard that a few places, and it's just ridiculous. But Trump is now coming out with a few interesting statements. His general election appeal is now in question, and Donald Trump's senior team is promising anxious Republicans that voters will see a real different guy soon after the GOP frontrunner claims his party's presidential nomination. So he's going to change face a little bit. How? Well, you'll start to see more depth of the person, the real person, they say. You'll see a real different guy. Says Manafort, who's a campaign manager, Paul Manafort, who's leading the primary election strategy, saying he gets it. Trump needs to moderate his brash personality. That's part of that's what he's been playing. Is he's going to be evolving, apparently, according to this nomination. This campaign manager is what they're calling him, whatever that is. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. This is Best Shot. This is your show. Number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949. We're checking out our tweets on Hot News Talk Radio. We've got quite a few of them, quite a lot of them. Very controversial tweets, too. I don't know who the guy is who tweets them out, but he's going to get himself shot, some of the stuff he's done. 423-800-8949, though, is the number to call in. 423-800-8949. We're serving Chattanooga here in Hot News Talk Radio. We're a very Chattanooga-oriented station. And Chattanooga, Hickson, Saudi Daisy, Cleveland a little bit, too. We reach up there, too. My house in Ringgold gets us sometimes, occasionally, depending on the weather. So check us out, Hot News Talk Radio, very local station here in Chattanooga and Hickson. And, of course, Saudi Daisy. We are a Saudi Daisy radio station. Now, our Twitter is a hot topic. We talk about it around the office a lot. There's a lot of controversy, lots of shouting matches about what we should tweet, what we shouldn't tweet. But when it comes to it, I can't tell anybody what to do. The guy who tweets the tweets is going to tweet what he tweets, and that's the end of it. So there's a lot of controversy now coming out about Target because of the whole transgender bathroom thing. Lots of controversy about the transgender bathrooms. And we will not be taking any Target ads, actually, at Hot News Talk Radio. If you ever hear a Target ad on Hot News Talk Radio, it means we've been hijacked and someone is playing Target ads for some reason. So Target is taking a stand. And I hate it when organizations like companies get political. That just seems so petty when a company gets political. And I think that about a lot of companies. I think Chick-fil-A sometimes is kind of petty with its stances. And I think that a lot of other companies, Walmart and Target now in this case, is petty with its stance. It's like, we're going to be really cool. Because when it comes down to it, it's a marketing strategy. You know, companies do everything for a reason. When a company does something, it's for a reason, and more often than not, it's for a marketing reason. Target is now taking a stand, according to CNN Money, on the bathroom controversy, the transgender bathroom controversy. You might remember in North Carolina, there's been a lot of talk about the whole transgender bathroom thing because there's been a new bill that's been passed in North Carolina which states that to enter a bathroom, you must enter a bathroom which coordinates with the sex which is on your birth certificate. So I would go into the men's bathroom. You might go into the women's bathroom. Somebody else is going to go into the men's bathroom, so on and so forth. Makes sense. Well, there's a lot of discussion about that, to say the least. Lots of people are really mad about the whole idea of the transgender bathroom. And lots of people are really mad about the idea of not having a transgender bathroom and having people who look like women going into the men's bathroom and how that might create a dangerous situation for that person, or vice versa, someone who appears to be a woman who is actually biologically a man going into the female restroom. It's causing a lot of controversy. We got a caller on the line. Caller, what's going on? You're on Hot News Talk Radio.
Yeah, good topic. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't know what people are all upset about. This is crazy because, first of all, you're not going to send your little girl or your little boy into the bathroom by themselves. Secondly, anyone going through this has been through a tough time because they have gender identity issues. Trust me, they don't want to deal with that. And I know that because 10 years ago, I worked with some male, which I didn't know until I got to know him, who dressed as a female when he wasn't working. And do you know what it takes a male to go through to dress like a female? Forget about it. No male would want to do that. What a nightmare. Come on, if you have a girlfriend or a wife. And he told me he felt like a woman since he was about 7 or 8 years old. He identifies himself as being a female, even though he has male parts. And he wasn't a rapist, and he wasn't a pedophile, and he wasn't crazy. He was very conservative, very right-wing, except this part of his life, he actually believed. Can you imagine looking into the mirror believing you're a woman?
No, I can't actually imagine that personally.
I don't know. Is it psychological? Is it genes? Is it whatever? But I think this is a big to-do about nothing.
That's entirely possible, too. And the North Carolina legislature has said what it's going to say. And again, like I say, I think this is nine-tenths of it is marketing on the side of Target. They're saying, look how cool we are. Look how progressive we are. We are Target. Come and shop at our store. You know, that's what it is.
Now, there's a very minority sect of, I guess you would call it the homosexual community, that wants to stir trouble. But that's in everything.
Right.
And I've never seen them. I mean, I've never run up against someone that goes, I hate heterosexuals, and here I am, I'm undressing, and I'm a freak. And most people aren't like that. I think we need to look at the IRS stealing people's money, creating liens with no authority, the tyranny of the federal government imposing their will upon the states, this new now global warming initiative that is a big fraud. Because of they want to impose an international tax. There is so much more. This is nothing more than a big diversion. That's what it is from the real issues. But you sound good. Thanks.
Thanks, man. Yeah. No, it is entirely possible that it's all a big diversion, and maybe I've been rused too into talking about the bathroom bill, which is something interesting too. That if it is a ruse, I can almost certainly tell you what it's a ruse about. You might remember, and how can you not? Because it's everywhere. There's the whole issue with the $20 bill being changed. Andrew Jackson is going to be, well, I say going to be, I'm not sure if it's finalized or not, but Andrew Jackson has been on the $20 bill for forever. Harriet Tubman is purportedly going to be replacing Andrew Jackson. And, there's mixed feelings about that move. I don't think that Harriet Tubman is a terrible person. It's not like, oh man, I don't like Harriet Tubman being put on the $20 bill because I don't like Harriet Tubman. I just don't see a point to it. For the most part, it seems, again, like pandering, and I've heard a lot of people say that too, that it's just pandering. It's like, look how progressive we are. Again, it's a move to say, look how progressive we are. Kind of like Target, actually, is doing, whereas look how progressive we are. We're going to make a statement about some political thing and yada, yada. I don't think money should be a political object, although it does tend to be. Money should just be money. You take liberal money, you take conservative money, because it's just money. It's green. It spends the same no matter who gives it to you or who you give it to. And, that it's money is money. But the real issue here that should be addressed is Andrew Jackson was very much against the idea of a central bank. Yeah, Andrew Jackson hated central banks, and he hated bankers. He hated the whole idea of a bank because it, tends to be kind of a bad idea, believe it or not, which is weird for our generation, especially. And I mean, the past 3 to understand that banks are a bad thing, but they are. And there's a lot of reasons why. Now, the interesting thing too is that that Andrew Jackson was very much in favor of a gold standard. We hear about the gold standard all the time. We don't really understand what the gold standard means. Well, in the old days, you could exchange your paper notes for gold. You could receive $20 of gold. And there are lots of people out there who are way more educated on this issue than I am. I'm just giving a brief summary. You could hand in your gold certificate. It's a sheet of paper that had Andrew Jackson on it, in this particular case, saying $20 of gold. You would turn it in for actual gold. It was worth that amount of gold. It was a certificate which you would, on demand, receive this gold back, which was something that has a hard value, which means then that your money has a hard set value that's not going to fluctuate like fiat currencies do. Look at what's happening in Canada as an example. Canada has sold off most of its gold reserves. Now, Canada's currency has not been backed by gold anyway, but Canada has sold off most of its gold reserves. Take from that what you will. But also, Canada's currency has been really tanking badly to the point where it's like 70 cents on the dollar. That's not good for Canada. And there are a lot of, good people who live there who certainly shouldn't be put through this. But you can point to the politicians and say, look, it's these guys' fault. It's the politicians' fault. You have a new president, very liberal, Justin Trudeau. He's borderline, if not full-on socialist. Very much into social issues, too, by the way. He's got transgender people he's put into parliament. And there's all sorts of different things that have been going on with the whole Canada issue that we could go into for forever. But this is an American Southern show, particularly a Chattanooga show, so we don't need to talk about Canadian politics. But using Canada as an example, we can see what happens when you ostracize and eliminate gold from the monetary process. Now you have a currency that's worth jack. You've got price of commodities going sky high, where groceries in Canada are worth, well, they cost a lot. They're worth the same, but they cost a lot compared to groceries here. We should be thankful, by the way, for how fortunate we are and how blessed we are to live where we do, where we can buy groceries very affordably, unless you go to Whole Foods. You can afford groceries very affordably. It's a simple matter to go down to the store and buy a head of lettuce. But in some places, that's an ordeal. That's a big deal. Buying eggs, buying milk. Milk is very expensive in Canada right now. Why is that? Well, they've ostracized gold. There's no standard for the currency. It's tanking in value. Chinese investors are not looking so favorably at Canada. China's been buying up a lot of gold, too, by the way, which is kind of interesting. I've heard rumors that China might be starting up a gold-backed yen. Now, that would certainly be an interesting move on China's part. But anyway, this is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. This is Best Shot, the show where you can call in here at Hot News Talk Radio. 423-800-8949 is the number to call in. 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949. On topic of the transgender bathroom bill, by the way, Tennessee had a similar bill, which was supposed to be passed, but it was then killed by the sponsor, interestingly enough. They said because, well, we need to focus on better issues and so on and so forth. The real issue was probably because the district attorney, or the state attorney, I should say, revealed that the state of Tennessee would probably lose a lot of federal funding if the bill was put forth. So, yeah, that's probably the real reason why. It's all a big mess. When you start talking about gender politics, which is a foreign issue anyway, when you start talking about the issue of gay rights, and you start talking about genders and gay folks and trans folks and all the different people that comprise this very large and diverse group, it's a difficult topic because it's like talking about straight people, where how can we put straight people into a box? How can we put gay people into a box? We should look at it more on an individual level, where a person is a person and people generally just want to be left alone. I don't think that your average gay gentleman walking down the street wants to bug everybody. Or I should put that in better terms, wants to annoy everyone. Sorry. It's not, people just want to be left alone. You can say that about most every group, where even, and this is controversial to say, especially here, but even I would say the individual Muslim just wants to be left alone on the individual level. We just want to be left alone. I don't want people bothering me. Now, you do have people who want to press their own agenda onto other people. And certainly there are a lot of people who want to do that. I'm not sure if they make up the majority, but you have a lot of people who want to push their own agenda onto other people. Now, my agenda is mostly leaving people alone, actually. My political agenda tends to be less government so that we can be left alone. The issue of course, surveillance is one that always gets me going. Surveillance is something that always gets me going. It's one of the biggest issues that we have now, especially in the age of the internet and smartphones, that no one really wants to address properly. For instance, you had not too long ago the issue of the FBI getting into the cell phone of the San Bernardino shooter, which was not an issue of terrorism. That was 100% an issue of controlling technology, nothing to do with terrorism. The current head of the FBI, James Comey, has raised this issue many times before outside the context of terrorism. So we know this is not a terrorism issue when we're talking about the cell phones being gotten into. By the way, there's been an addendum to that story, I should mention. Let me bring it up on my computer real quick, where the FBI is not revealing the third party which got into the iPhone. People have been asking, well, how did you get into the iPhone? Because eventually they did break into the San Bernardino shooter's iPhone without the help of Apple. And that was a interesting development, to say the least. But how was it done? Well, they've not really said. So what do you do? The Apple wants to know, obviously, how did you get into the iPhone? And the FBI is being very coy about that particular question. Lots of different news sources are picking this up. We'll go to CBS, where the FBI purportedly paid $1 million. That's 1 million with an M. That's 1 million of your tax dollars, which I know is a drop in the bucket, but you know how it goes. $1 million to hack an iPhone, and apparently found, get this, nothing. Oh, now that's not going to be reported all over the place. This is, fortunately, it's on CBS. We're a CBS affiliate here at Hot News Talk Radio, though we are not owned by CBS. We're not actually owned by anybody except the people who you hear talking on the air, not on the national side. We are locally owned and locally operated, and we're all about local. So we're not controlled by any outside interests. We carry CBS News and we carry Fox News because we believe that those are the best news sources you can get for radio. CBS does an excellent job in radio news, and Fox does an excellent job at the bottom of the hour on their radio news. But you also have the local news in the morning from me, Russell, and you probably heard my Minute Newscast, which we update throughout the day here on Hot News Talk Radio. So we're all about local here on Hot News Talk Radio. Get us on the TuneIn Radio app, by the way. That's TuneIn Radio. Go to TuneIn Radio on your smartphone and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Go to TuneIn Radio, search for Hot News Talk Radio on your iPhone or your Android phone or your tablet or whatever device you might have. You can listen to us there. Number to call in again is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949 is the number to call in. You can also tweet us. Go to Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter, and you can tweet at us there. We have lots of controversial tweets, so we always read your tweets. We're always happy to get them. FBI Director James Comey hinted at an event in London on Thursday that the FBI paid more than $1 million to break into the locked iPhone used by one of the San Bernardino attackers. Well, you'd hope with a price tag of $1 million that it would be worth it, right? $1 million to get into an iPhone, that's a lot of money to do anything, especially if we're talking about just breaking into a small piece of technology. Well, the Justice Department last month, which would be for us March, last month, revealed that an entity outside the government had approached it with a method that could be used to open up the phone, which was used purportedly by Syed Farouk along with his wife, who they say killed 14 people in December before dying in a police shootout. We covered that live, and you probably saw some of the footage online or on the TV news. Very dramatic stuff, very exciting, but still very dramatic and very tragic for the 14 people who died in those attacks. The revelation came after a federal magistrate had directed Apple to help the FBI hack into the phone. The FBI had said that it wanted access to the phone as part of an investigation. You probably remember the whole controversy that came out over that, where Apple was saying, we're not going to help you, and the FBI was saying, well, you have to because terrorism. And it turned out that, the FBI didn't really get what it wanted. There wasn't a whole lot of information on those phones. That's not very encouraging. He did not give a precise number for how much exactly they paid, but it says it was more than I will make in the remainder of this job, which is 7 years and 4 months for sure. He added that he thought the payment was worth it. So that's odd to think that James Comey will not be making more than $1 million in 7 years and 4 months. So I guess the FBI's director is not being paid very much. So I suppose that's a good thing. But the whole 1.3 million, I should be more specific, to get into the iPhone. But the whole idea of we need to get into your iPhone for your security is such an Orwellian concept, or maybe a Huxleyan concept. But it's such a concept that should be immediately offensive to us. When we hear a governmental agency saying we want to get into X piece of technology, that should be immediately offensive to us, because we should be asking, what business do you have? Now, again, this is an instance of, yes, it was used by a person who the FBI believes was a terrorist. He died. Obviously, I can't say specifically that Syed Farouk was a terrorist. Maybe he was. But again, he's not alive. He's not being convicted. So it's hard to say. But yeah, sure. Okay, this is for an investigation into a terroristic event. Cool. Okay, you have a warrant to get into the iPhone. Okay, cool. But in order to get into that iPhone, Apple would have to reveal the security codes for every single iPhone out there after iOS 7. Apple's not going to abandon its user base and do that because Apple has a vested interest in making sure that Apple consumers are at least somewhat convinced that iPhones are secure. So Apple's not going to do that. FBI has a hissy fit. You know the rest of the story. This is not a story about terrorism. It's a story about the FBI wanting to get into the average everyday Joe's phone. And Apple, fortunately, fighting back. It's gotten to the point where even the bootlickers over at Microsoft are upset at government overreach. That's a problem, to say the least. This is Best Shot here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. Number to call in, 423-800-8949. Best Shot here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. Number to call in, 423-800-8949. Check us out on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook, too. Go to Facebook. Search for Hot News Talk Radio. Listen to us on the TuneIn Radio app on your smartphone. Check us out on Bloom Sky, too, if you want to see the weather. Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your chance to win $124 in cash and $124 in food every week with the Hot News Talk Radio Five Guys Burgers and Fries 1, 2, 3 NASCAR contest. All you have to do is guess who's going to be first, second, and third place in the upcoming NASCAR Sprint Cup race. If you guess it, you'll hear your name live Monday morning at 11:30. Then call AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio to win. Enter your guess right now at Five Guys Burgers and Fries, 153 in Hickson, featuring the juiciest 100% all beef, have it your way hamburgers and the most delicious milkshakes in town. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds, 5301 Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. Wimpy's Restaurant in Soddy Daisy across from City Hall. Less's Pawn Shop, 4742 Highway 58, Chattanooga. And Shooter's Supply, 4824 Hickson Pike in Hickson. Enter your guesses now and listen to the race live to win $124 in cash and $124 in food from Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
I love NASCAR.
Shake, shake, shake it at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. The most delicious and unique milkshakes. How about this for delicious and different? Add freshly cooked bacon to any milkshake.
Is that even legal?
You bet your milkshake and booty it is. Chocolate caramel bacon shake. Coffee caramel shake. All hand blended. Shake, shake, shake it. Down at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. Just about any flavor shake that you can imagine. And they are delicious. Get your shake, shake, shake on at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. Five Guys Burgers and Fries, located in Hickson at North Point. Gun Barrel at the Walmart Center. Downtown 4th and Broad. And in Cleveland at Keith and Stewart.
Expect cloudy skies with some off and on showers for your Friday. They'll diminish late, highs into the lower 70s. Tonight, decreasing clouds, lows into the lower 50s. The weekend looking good. A few leftover clouds Saturday, but dry, pleasant. Highs mid and upper 70s, more sunshine, 80 to 82 on Sunday. Get ready for the 20th Annual National Cornbread Festival this weekend in South Pittsburgh, featuring lots of live music, arts and crafts, food, and much more. For details, nationalcornbread.com. And I'm Sheen 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Need more of your tax money back faster?
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. 3 men have been shot just in the last 24 hours. One victim was found on Highway 58. He testified that he had non-life-threatening injuries, and he'd been shot by somebody in a white Chevrolet Impala. Eventually, 2 suspects were detained and eventually arrested. They are Rashad C. Davis, who's 19, and Christopher Green, who's 20. Then, just before 1 o'clock this morning, the CPD responded to a call of a man shot on Wimberley Drive. The police located the victim suffering again from a non-life-threatening gunshot wound. The victim was outside of his house when he was shot. Police say he is expected to live. He was taken to the hospital by EMS. Currently, it's not known why he was shot or if this shooting is gang-related. The Hamilton County School Board has named Dr. Kurt Kelly as the interim superintendent. He received the 5 votes necessary to secure his seat, winning over Principal Jill Levine and a former Marine, Colonel Sean Sadler. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take the risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Rick Davis Golden Diamonds has got on his sunglasses. He's buying so many glittering diamonds today, he's almost going blind looking at the haul. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds, come on in today. He'll give you top dollar on a sparkling field of diamonds, an ocean of value that he wants to convert into cash for you. Come on in today, sell your diamonds. You'll get the biggest wad of dollars anywhere for your gleaming diamond. Rick Diamonds Golden Diamonds. Rick wants to meet you in person today. Diamonds, Rick loves them. He'll take your diamonds and gold and you'll walk out with ready-made money in your pocket. Hundreds, 50s, 20s, and $10 bills. Cash, cash, cash at Rick Davis Golden Diamonds. Rick Davis, Brainerd Road near Eastgate Town Center. Cash, 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 and more cash.
How do we get the next generation to love firearms and the defense of liberty? Well, we hunt, we plink, we shoot, we collect Winchesters. We talk about the right to bear arms. Shooter's Supply and Indoor Range in Hickson is here to help you. To save money on ammo, check out Shooter's Supply Laser Simulator Range. Great place for birthday parties, special events, group training. Do the zombie apocalypse. Get your children involved in live fire with a family membership at Shooter's Supply. Defend women and children. Sound like a strange idea? Well, take a concealed carry class, get your permit, and be the confident man of courage. That is, the armed citizen. Shooter Supply and Indoor Range on Hickson Pike, right near the mall. 875-4868. Repairs, transfers, huge selection of firearms. 875-4868. Stop by.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your chance to win $124 in cash and $124 in food every week with the Hot News Talk Radio Five Guys Burgers and Fries 1, 2, 3 NASCAR contest. All you have to do is guess who's going to be first, second, and third place in the upcoming NASCAR Sprint Cup race. If you guess it, you'll hear your name live Monday morning at 11:30. Then call AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio to win. Enter your guess right now at Five Guys Burgers and Fries 153 in Hickson, featuring the juiciest 100% all beef have it your way hamburgers and the most delicious milkshakes in town. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds, 5301 Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. Wimpy's Restaurant in Soddy Daisy across from City Hall. Less's Pawn Shop, 4742 Highway 58, Chattanooga. And Shooter's Supply, 4824 Hickson Pike in Hickson. Enter your guesses now and listen to the race live to win $124 in cash and $124 in food from Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
I love NASCAR.
Carnival Cruise Lines will now be shipping you off to Cuba if you want to. This is Best Shot. You're on Hot News Talk Radio. AM 1240, hotnewstalkradio.com. We can't guarantee that you won't be detained and questioned upon arrival at the border, though. Number call in is 423-800-8949. The Twitter account's Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Basically, it's Hot News Talk Radio everywhere. Go to Facebook, it's Hot News Talk Radio there. The TuneIn Radio app, it's Hot News Talk Radio. The Bloom Sky app for your smartphone, the weather app, it's Hot News Talk Radio there. You guessed it. It's Hot News Talk Radio kind of everywhere, actually. Check us out, Hot News Talk Radio. Well, Carnival Cruise Lines might actually be delaying that cruise over a possibility of discrimination, which is, of course, not a good thing. Well, depending on the discrimination, I suppose, but discrimination of Cuban Americans, which sounds kind of odd, I know. But faced now with protests and political pressure and a lawsuit, Carnival has announced on Monday that it will be allowing Cuban-born passengers to book cruises to the island, but it will be delaying the trips if Cuba does not change its policy, barring those nationals from returning by sea. So if you are born in Cuba, and so you emigrate to the United States, or maybe Canada, or maybe a South American country, Argentina, Brazil, possibly, one of these countries, then you try to return to Cuba. Apparently that's not allowed in Cuba, which seems kind of odd because we're so used to immigration, which is such that if you say you're an American and you leave for another country and then you want to come back, it's not really a big deal. Personally, I have a friend actually who's done a similar thing. So it's not a big deal. But for some reason in Cuba, it is. Not sure why. But now they're being faced with protests. Carnival CEO Arnold Donald, which is a fun name, Arnold Donald, said in a written statement that the cruise line is continuing negotiations with Cuba aimed at resolving the issue prior to a scheduled May the 1st cruise from its Fathom brand from Miami to Cuba, the first such sail in more than 50 years, part of the ongoing thaw in U.S.-Cuba relations, which, the thaw in U.S.-Cuba relations is certainly, I would say, a good thing. It brings capitalism to Cuba. It's going to hopefully give the people over there an opportunity to make some money, right? Because making money in Cuba is not particularly easy. It's going to open up industry in Cuba again, so that these people who are possibly even starving, maybe there's a food shortage in Cuba, maybe it's hard for you to receive goods in Cuba. Nonetheless, it's nice to know that industry will be opening up. Now, this raises how should I put this? This is a hot topic. This is a sore spot for a lot of people I know. Because I'll admit, I didn't live through the Cuban Missile Crisis. I didn't live through all the hostilities of the Cold War. I'm an up-and-comer. I'm a new guy. I was born after the fall of the Berlin Wall, right? Like, Russia has always been the Russian Federation for me. Cuba has always been that island that was never really a big threat to me. That's just always been how it is. North Korea has been that sort of a joke of a country that is currently holding a film festival, I believe. So it's, these former Cold War states are really not a big deal to people of the new generation. We don't think of them as a serious thing. Maybe we should. Maybe there's merit to thinking that Cuba could still be a threat. But nevertheless, the idea that we can now travel to Cuba freely without being worried about being arrested when you come back with a handful of cigars is a nice idea. Having personally partaken in the usage of Cuban cigars, they're actually really nice. The stories are true. They're not bad at all. I had them up in Canada where it's legal, by the way. I didn't have them smuggled in. But no, it's the whole idea of bringing capitalism to Cuba seems like a good idea. Cuba, by the way, before was sort of like a capitalist utopia almost. There were casinos everywhere, resorts obviously everywhere. I've heard that some of the most beautiful beaches in the world are at Guantanamo Bay, for heaven's sake. So Cuba has a lot to offer in terms of the capitalistic the capitalistic drive. But unfortunately, Cuba nationalized a lot of those industries, made the U.S. very upset because of that. Can you imagine if you had a Coca-Cola plant in a country and then suddenly the country turns communist and says, actually, that's ours? You have the state claiming property suddenly that was previously owned by either private individuals or companies. That's not a good thing. So the hostility towards Cuba is certainly understandable. And Fidel Castro is on his last legs. He came out with a speech saying he's on his way out. And apparently the guy who tweets for Hot News Talk Radio is going to be traveling to Cuba for the sole purpose of urinating on the grave of Fidel Castro. Can I say that even? Yeah, that's obviously the older generation doesn't like Cuba very much. You can tell. Very upset about Cuba. So anyway, there's been new developments about Cuba. Apparently, Carnival Cruise Lines is having quite a few problems with Cuba. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com. You can listen to us on the internet there. Go to Twitter, go to Facebook, search for Hot News Talk Radio. We're on the TuneIn Radio app. We're also on the Bloom Sky app for your smartphone. The number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 8949. 423-800-8949. Donald Trump says he's going to be a little bit more professional. It's coming up soon with the presidential primaries looming overhead. You have the Republican National Convention coming up soon, and you have the possibility of a contested convention, which would, of course, be disastrous. And now Donald Trump is asking that Ted Cruz and John Kasich, the guy who you probably haven't heard of, he's asking that they kind of drop out, because Ted Cruz, he says, doesn't have a chance, and John Kasich certainly doesn't have a chance. But Donald Trump says that Donald Trump has a pretty good chance. Donald Trump called on his two rivals, according to the Daily Mail, which I know is not the best source ever, but, on his two rivals to clear out of the Republican presidential race on Thursday night, saying that he's the only GOP White House hopeful who can possibly win the support of a majority of Republican National Convention delegates. He says, honestly, Cruz and Kasich have no path to victory, he said in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 5 days before the Keystone State's primary election. It's over. It's over, he said, because Donald Trump likes to repeat himself. Trump, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, and Ohio Governor John Kasich are the last survivors of a field that started with 17 contenders. Remember Rand Paul? He was running. Remember Chris Christie? He was running. Yeah, lots of people. Remember Ben Carson? He was running too. Lots of people were running for the office of president on the Republican ticket. Way more than you had on the Democratic side. Basically, it's been the same story forever. I think Jim Webb was running on the Democratic side. He's, Jim Webb seems all right for a Democrat, but you had Bernie Sanders, you had Hillary Clinton, and right now you have Bernie Sanders and you have Hillary Clinton. It seems like Hillary is a pretty clear win. Sanders doesn't have much of a chance, which honestly, would I rather have Bernie Sanders or would you rather have Hillary Clinton? That's a tough one. That actually is kind of a tough one because Sanders is a straight up socialist who wants to break up the banks, which, on its face sounds like a pretty good idea, but not for the right reasons. Wants to break up the banks. He wants to give us all free college, which for me is useless because I didn't go to college. Lots of things will be more affordable. Healthcare will be free somehow. Lots of other things will be free. And somehow there's a budget plan that's going to make this all work. It's one of the most expensive expenditures in American history if it does happen, which, of course, admittedly, the wall would be too, but supposedly the Mexicans would be paying for that somehow. Not sure how. But no, the Bernie Sanders idea is not very it's not very fiscally conservative. We'll put it that way. Free college. The whole idea of college seems outdated almost. Think about this. I was talking to Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source not too long ago. Bruce is a great guy, and I don't want to drag him into a political conversation because this is strictly numbers we're talking about. Krebs is a great guy, though. Definitely check out his show on every other Wednesday here on Hot News Talk Radio at 11 o'clock. That's the Entrepreneur Hour with Bruce Krebs. Check him out. Great show. If you're ever interested in getting involved in a franchise or becoming an entrepreneur, talk to Bruce Krebs. Great guy. He'll help you out. Extremely nice. Bruce Krebs is the Entrepreneur Source. Do a quick Google search for Bruce Krebs with a K. That's BRUCE. KREBS, Bruce Krebs. He's like the first result on Google. Check him out. Great guy. Very smart. We were talking about numbers, and we were talking about the number of college graduates that are coming out and the number of jobs that are opening up, and the numbers don't line up. There are way more college graduates being generated than there are jobs being created. Now, you can fudge the numbers and say, well, actually, there are this many jobs being created, which means just we didn't lay off this many people this year because we wanted to make that quota. So the amount of college graduates that we are generating do not correlate at all with the amount of jobs that are opening up. We're having an oversaturation of college graduates. There are too many college graduates right now who have, a lot of them have bogus degrees that aren't going to get them anywhere, some liberal arts degree, which doing a study in liberal arts in college in and of itself is not bad, but having a degree, I don't know. That's like having a bachelor's in English. That's not going to get you far in the business world. You got to diversify. Now, having a business degree, that's different. Having a STEM degree, that's different. Having a degree that is actually useful is actually different. And both women and men should be engaging in that. People are talking about, oh, why aren't there more women in STEM degrees? I don't know. Why aren't there more men in STEM degrees? Why aren't there more people in general wanting STEM degrees? Which, by the way, science, technology, engineering, and mechanics, I believe. It's all very job-oriented. It's not a degree in art, which has its merits. It's not a degree in film, which has its merits. It's a degree in something that is actually useful for the real job market, which really we want a degree in something that actually is scientific, technological, engineering, mechanics, something along those lines that actually can put you in the job market. But for some reason, people, especially millennials, are not wanting these degrees, and we're having an oversaturation. So Bernie Sanders' plan to have free college so more people can go to college, so more people can get these bogus degrees that aren't going to get them jobs, doesn't seem like a good idea. What this is going to do, I should get my words together. What this is going to do instead is going to generate a class of people, possibly an entire generation of people, or at least a large margin of that, a large margin of this new generation, which is going to be dependent on the state, because you're going to have this free college, okay? Now you're going to have this useless degree, okay, which you're not going to be able to use to get a job, okay, which means you're going to have to go on welfare, or you're going to perceive that you have to go on welfare. So you're going to have this, again, a class of people dependent on the state. Is this Bernie Sanders' end goal? Possibly. The more people you have dependent on the state, the fewer people are going to want to get rid of said state. So it's very counter-revolutionary. So it's a good idea if you want to keep the state going. But if you want to perhaps revamp the system, not such a great idea. Well, that's the Bernie Sanders camp. The Bernie Sanders camp is mostly made up of people who are very young. Some of them too young to vote. Lots of 17-year-olds at Bernie rallies, you'll notice. Lots of 17 and 16-year-olds at Bernie rallies. Because he has the younger, optimistic crowd, which is not particularly well-versed in how business works, how economics works, and how just life in general works. Because let's say, when you're 17, you don't know how the world works. When you're 21, you don't know how the world works. There are a lot of 30-year-olds I know who don't know how the world works. I'm not all the way there, right? Not everybody is going to be well-versed in how the world works. So you have this class of people, again, who don't really know how the world works, who are voting for this guy, Bernie Sanders, because he promises cool free stuff. Now, you can make the ideological argument, too, to say, well, Bernie Sanders is the least racist out of all the candidates. Okay, fine. If you have a racial reason for a vote, that seems kind of shallow, but all right. It's all very shallow, honestly. I want to vote for this guy because he's going to get me free stuff. We're not thinking about why he's giving us these free things. We're not thinking about what the motivation is. We're not thinking about how he's going to get us these free things, too. Like, how is that going to happen? And never minding all that, even if he does become president, Bernie Sanders, and tries to enact all these different programs, guess what? Congress is going to slap that down. I can't imagine Congress saying, yeah, actually, a free college is a great idea. All of us who went to these very expensive colleges are definitely going to want a bunch of kids to go to these colleges for free. Doesn't seem likely. So it's a ridiculous idea, but we kind of knew that. And Hot News Talk Radio just tweeted on April the 16th. I've been scrolling way down there. Every day we get a little bit closer to socialism. He says, then repeat at the state, regional, and local levels, cut out the cancer at its socialist roots, i.e. the modern state. And the modern state is very socialist in a lot of ways because people rely on it. People want it. People want more of it. Government is like a drug. The more you engage with it, the more you engage in it, the more you take from it, the more you want. Because you realize, oh, I can get the equivalent of a decent salary just by being on welfare. Why would I want to get a job then at that point? So obviously you're going to vote for the person who's going to give you more of these benefits. This is not a racial argument or even a class argument. It's just a human nature argument. That's just how people are. White, black, Hispanic, Native American. I don't care. That's how people are. If I were engaged in that, I'd probably be the same way if I were brought up in that system. And I'm the most average white guy ever. It's just how people are. It's people. It's not a racial thing. It's a numbers thing. And by the way, right now, Donald Trump is leading in the polls, kind of interestingly enough. Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and John Kasich. I saw a poll the other day where John Kasich was actually ahead of Ted Cruz. I don't know how that happened, but it did. In different states, John Kasich was more popular than Ted Cruz, which is, again, kind of odd. And let me just say, because I've talked about Trump a lot, I'm kind of not caring too much about the national elections. I don't have a whole lot of ponies in this race. We'll put it that way. I'm much more interested in the Libertarian Party, the Constitutional Party, which I know they say throw away your vote on a third party, whatever. I also think that the system is kind of broken when it comes to the presidential elections. I'm of the position that there probably shouldn't even be a president in the first place because that's too much centralized power in one place. Look at executive orders that have been passed. Look at different orders which presidents have done, authorizations for different things, which frankly I don't like and I think are immoral. So then why would I support this position which constantly, no matter which party is in, does the things which I disagree with? It doesn't make any sense. So I don't really have a horse in that race. I think it's interesting that Donald Trump has gotten to where he is. It's like watching a really long train wreck, which is how you could describe basically every election. It's watching a really long train wreck because it just keeps going and getting worse and worse. Look at from Reagan to now, things have just gotten worse and worse and worse. We had sort of an uptick when Reagan was in terms of popular opinion, in terms of optimism, because that does play a huge role. The economy was crap in the 70s. We all know it. The economy was terrible in the 70s. It got a little bit better in the 80s. There are a lot of factors at play. But the fact of the matter is people associate that with Reagan, whether or not he's responsible for that or not. People associate that with Reagan. After Reagan got out of office and in the later days of the Reagan presidency, because he had the Iran-Contra deal, which is a mess. After all that, you had negative opinions. You had suddenly things going downhill again in the 90s, in the late 80s. You had George Bush becoming president. Woohoo. What did he do? Then he had Bill Clinton becoming president. Oh boy. Then he had George W. Bush becoming president. Things just got worse and worse. He had Barack Obama becoming president, and things get worse after that. Now you're going to have the next guy. And I don't think we're going to have another Ronald Reagan where things have sort of an uptick, or even a FDR where things on a social level, on a popular opinion level, had an uptick. Whether or not you like FDR, I certainly don't. But you have to recognize that on a social level, people became more optimistic because he was a good public speaker, basically. So if public opinion can go up again, hey, maybe we'll have a better country for it. But I don't think that'll happen because I'm a very cynical person. Anyway, check us out on Twitter, Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook, Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook. You can call in. Number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949 is the number to call in. Get us on the TuneIn Radio app on your smartphone. That's TuneIn Radio on your smartphone. You can listen to us streaming live there any time of day, anywhere in the world. You can do the same thing on the computer. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com on your computational device, and you can listen to us there. Coming up next after me is Colin Cowherd, the Rush Limbaugh of sports, does great broadcasting. One of the best broadcasters in the business, I would say. And on a national level, easily the best sports broadcaster on the national level. On the local level, however, we have Clutch with Keon Rose. Great show, 6 to 7 every weekday here at Hot News Talk Radio. That's Clutch with Keon Rose, live in local sports. Then you have Ground Zero and Coast to Coast AM. You have Free Talk Live, very radical libertarian, very free market-minded people at Free Talk Live. They make me look liberal. Let me put it that way. The guys at Free Talk Live, they make me look like a neocon. And that's saying something. Listen to Free Talk Live. It's on late at night here on Hot News Talk Radio. Good stuff. Very good stuff. I'm very proud of the programming that we have here at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, hotnewstalkradio.com as well. There's really a lot going on in political news so far because we are getting closer and closer to the primaries. This is interesting. Millions of people will be hitting the 100-year-old mark coming up soon. The marvels of modern medicine, I guess, can be credited with this and healthy living and healthy eating. If you see your 100th birthday, according to Market Watch, you'll soon be in good company. The number of centenarians, people who are a century old, will grow from about 451,000 in 2015 to about 3,676,000 in 2050. Wow. That's according to a report released on Thursday by the Washington, D.C.-based think tank Pew Research Center. This means that while last year there were just 7.4 100-year-old people every 10,000 adults ages 65 and up, and in 2050, it'll be 23.6. We're going to have a lot of really old people by 2050. Think about it this way, though. If you are just now turning 60, there's a good chance you'll be around in 2050. That's a pretty good idea, right? We all want to live to be old. We all want to die of old age peacefully surrounded by family and friends. And modern medicine, modern technology is helping us to get there. Technology is driving us in wonderful directions. Politics, not so much, but that is one thing we have to look forward to. Technology is looking amazing. Listen to my show every other weekday, sometimes Mondays at 11 o'clock binary, where we talk about technology quite a bit more. Lots of things to be optimistic about when it comes to technology. Now, there is a negative thing. You have the surveillance, like we talked about earlier with James Comey and the FBI and wanting to get into our phones and how that has nothing at all to do with terrorism. It's just used as an excuse. Well, we talk about that on binary at 11 o'clock on weekdays here on Hot News Talk Radio. Again, Colin Cowherd is coming up next. Number to call in is 423-800-8949. Be sure to tweet at us on Twitter. Send us a message on Facebook. We love that. Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, hotnewstalkradio.com, Twitter, Facebook, TuneIn Radio, Blue Sky app. Get us everywhere. Hot News Talk Radio.